you're still a designer, approach it like a design problem, bring them into this design process of like, oh, let's craft a solution together that you're super happy about. Sounds like the perfect tactic. How do you think about opportunity cost in that situation? Because this stuff takes a long time and you might jump on like 10 calls before they even start to be vulnerable and be like, hey, how do you think about that?
I would say that's actually like an incredibly difficult thing to manage in this kind of like service-based agency world. I often think about this like kind of time to contract. How long does it take between meeting someone and getting their kind of signature on the dotted line where you can start getting paid for the work that you're doing? Because yeah, if you front load that conversation too soon, then maybe you can spook people and it doesn't work out. And if you leave it too late, then you realize, hey, I've actually been doing unpaid work for like 3 weeks and then this is going nowhere. I think where I really notice this is when clients are like, oh, I know I need something, but I can't quite figure out exactly what I need. And this is also where there's space for business model innovation, because the traditional way of like agencies is there'll be like a request for proposal from a really big organization. They say, we need X, Y, and Z because we want to redesign our entire application. Or at a smaller scale, you meet with someone and they're like, I need some research because everyone's dropping off our checkout flow and I really need to understand why. And that's kind of like a dream scenario in some senses where the client has a lot of clarity, but it's just not always the case. So then instead of them buying a project, can they buy access to your time? Can you start selling more of the fractional experience? So can you say, you know what? It sounds like a lot of design work that needs to be done inside your organization. Considering we're at these really early days, why don't I just come in a couple of days a week, work with the team, start adding this value, and can do a lot more of this kind of upskilling and culture building, these other ancillary activities as well. Why don't I close off the fractional arrangement and jump over to a contract that supports what we've got? You can just try it. I don't know, that's my thinking. What have you got, Chris?
There's actually like numerous opportunities based on the client's need and you can fit yourself in. So what I've been doing is having this initial conversation and I actually send the payment link pretty upfront. I establish the rate and I'm like, hey, just lock it in. And then I follow up quite often. But I also think if you're thinking too much about opportunity cost, you're almost doing yourself a disservice and the client, because you're always kind of rushing them and it's in the back of your mind, like this guy's not paying. And I don't think that's the right way to approach sales. You have to actually think about what do they need and genuinely how you can help them. Me sending a payment link, so it's always there, they can access it, but they already know the cost upfront because some people just don't look at your website. This is a monetary exchange for value. So it's kind of like I'm not being in the friend zone. And opportunity cost wise, I guess it's more of just a vibes of like how warm is this person? And I would try to keep it warm, but if it's like any relationship, if someone's backing up and they're kind of ghosting you, you kind of get the picture. I try not to put too much energy and be over committed. Leave something for curiosity. I guess that's my weird analogy of sales. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like what you're saying, it's such an important balance to strike between tenacious with your follow-up versus being really annoying that you're not getting the message, that they're not interested. And a lot of, I think what you read around social media strategy is about like how to stay top of mind for employers, you know, people who are out there like trying to find a job, and the advice would be like, you know, comment on people's LinkedIn and like write LinkedIn posts and stuff. And I think those same principles can totally apply. You're having an agency and you're trying to win work as well. One way to make sure that you're top of mind is to be out there and showing that you are a thought leader and that you are thinking through the types of challenges that you know that your clients have, that you want to work on with your clients. Social media and content creation is a really great way to do that. I got my first client through LinkedIn. They engaged with my content. I sent them a message and said like, I do this in-house. And they're like, yeah, great, I'm super interested. And I was like, really? Oh my God. That led to business. So I think it's not just putting it out there, but also then following up with one-on-one messages. I know we've transitioned from the warm lead that you're in the conversation to the total kind of fresh lead.
It's kind of every business nowadays, I believe, should be a content business, right? And media. They have their media arm because how are you supposed to amplify what you do if nobody knows? You don't have to create content just for leads. It could be for an existing client. Like, okay, this is how we onboard people, right? It's kind of making everything simpler. And actually just releasing it to the public could help also a bunch of people, right? Like you don't need to sell your knowledge, you just sell the execution on your side. I want to go to some more audience questions. It's really innovative that you've productized user research. So well done. How does the element of subscription work for your subscription service? Like, are you retainer pricing? What does that mean, subscription?
So the way that this iteration of the subscription service works is that folks sign on for the subscription and every month they get a study. And over the course of a month up until the study, your organization kind of adds all the questions that are coming to their mind when it comes to research to a Trello board or a Notion doc. Things like, we're having problems with this flow, we don't understand it. We've got this great new idea for a product. We need to get some quick feedback. Once a month, we sit down together and we scope out, okay, what can we actually feasibly answer? Because people might want the moon and that's just not feasible kind of on the plan that they're on. We could obviously talk about other ways of finding out what they need to find out, but generally that's how it works. So we sit down and say, okay, I think we can actually answer 3 out of these 5 questions and we'll kick the other ones over to the following month. And then I go and do the research and we will have agreed on like the target market and the number of users right up the front with the subscription. So I could get all of them booked in while we're doing the scoping, write the discussion guide, go out and do all of the sessions and come back with a report, which I know there was a question here also about what the deliverable is. That the deliverable would be in the form of a written report in the format that the organization wants the most. And I think it's so important to be flexible, right? Some people would be very happy with a 1-page bullet points, extremely to the point situation. Others are going to want more like a 15-page slide deck. That's essentially the deliverable. And then a couple of weeks later, we'd be sitting down again and going through that scoping process all over. So that's how it kind of works as a subscription.
So a lot of these subscription agencies do like pause forever or cancel straight away. How do you think about the logistics or the technical things about subscription? Like, can they do that? Like, is that good for the business?
Well, I think you've asked 2 very different questions there.
Okay,
Can they do it and is it good for the business, right? And this is where you start to put on your UX hat and that's like desirability, right? Like what does my customer want? But then I need to think about the viability and the feasibility and what does that mean from a business model and a revenue perspective. So I think with this subscription, there has to be pausing, right? Like could be possible. If clients need to pause for some reason, like of course, we can definitely have that kind of conversation. And right now it's month to month. I might be introducing annual plans and stuff like down the road, but we're weeks in. So we are at the early days. You guys are getting like behind the scenes live as it's happening. But yeah, like I think all of those kind of options are on the table.
That makes sense. The first client I got 2 days before the subscription ended, and they're like, can we pause? And I was like, well, the delivery is like 48 hours. Basically, you've run out of that month. Or it was less than 2 days, like 1.5 days. So like logistically, it was really hard to say, yeah, it's fine because there's just like 1 day left, but that doesn't mean anything. So that's why I knew it was a bad client, and I was just like, not doing this again.
Yeah, people love talking about like firing their clients. That's something people have to be open to, and it's like really interesting to hear you've had that experience.
Agency of one, so I'm okay with firing anybody that I don't like working with. I'm just like, no, I'm sorry, man. But of course, mindful of the delivery, right? I've committed. I'm still going to do the work. Not going to have a crazy angry breakup. Let's fingers crossed that hasn't happened yet. Okay, there was one really interesting question. How do you communicate to someone that needs this kind of service but has no knowledge?
For me, what's important is
Want to listen to the full conversation? Click the video on screen now. Subscribe to the channel if you want to join us live. Oh, wait. Okay, fine, you don't have to join us for the live stream, but if you like stuff like this, then click that subscribe button. I'll see you on the inside. Bye!